All right. Ready, D-Led?
Yeah, Coach. What are some of the keys as you all get ready to prepare for the Cardinals with Taylor staying in there at quarterback?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, there's every week. There's things we got to continue to work and improve. Oh, you good? No, you're great. I promise. It's like walking into class, right? Am I early? That's okay. We almost had D-Led rolled up on his ankle, putting his recorder up here, and then we're good. We'll promise. He'll take it from the top. So, all right, here we go. Lock in. I know just about D-Led. You asked about the keys, right? This week, just absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of things. Every week's different challenges. There's things that you continually look to work on, and we've got to improve. And going out to Arizona, they'll have Kyler Murray back, right? They just took him off, the IR, and so I'm sure he'll be ready to go. And there's always something every week, right? So, what showed up last week in terms I'm sure they'll try to attack is mobile quarterback, play extensions. And we got to get, there's stuff we've done well early in the year. Well, it comes up, and it's always a work in progress. So we got to make sure we contain him. He's been dangerous throughout his career. We got to do a better job of tackling in that regard. And we know that he's a weapon. I'm sure they're excited to get him back. And then defensively, they, present a lot of unique challenges. They've got a really good third down package, a lot of different looks they throw at you. In the run game, you see a lot of multiple fronts. The middle part of that defense, especially on the back end with starting about Buda Baker, it's a salty group, and they try to give you different looks, and like I said, they'll throw different things at us. I'm sure to try to knock us off track, and things that have hurt us, I'm sure will come back up, and we got to fix that as well.
Any update on Drake London and the other injured players?
Yeah, so Drake will be positive. He'll be working back into practice today. There'll be a couple guys that we think are close. They'll be working off to the side. With Helms and Mack and D, and we'll just have to see. You obviously need to see those guys do something by the end of the week. But that's positive with Drake. At least that's trending in the right direction. So going to this game, for the most part, pretty healthy, and as guys continue to improve, and that's what we also want to see. We got to hit our stride here as we go to this last half of the season.
In terms of Deshaun and how you use him in the red zone, we talked about it.
Sure.
What is it maybe that he does or doesn't bring in the red zone that's kind of led to him not getting a lot of the work?
Well, I think a lot of it, again, the results are what they are. And Mike said this is kind of if you don't mind, I'll give some context to it. Because again, a smart friend of mine too, we were talking about nuance and context, and sometimes, two things could be true at once. One, when you haven't gotten the results you want, you should be criticized and be objective. And I thought about it being objective, so what does that mean? So you got to go look at things that didn't work. Why you did something, what your intent is. Okay, well, why is the result? So you got to look at your mistakes and your failures and say, all right, this is what our intent, what you're thinking about, or how do I objectively fix that? And that's what you got to be really honest. That's the only way you improve. So whether you're coaching or you're a player or you're in any other industry, that's real. And that's what we strive to do every week. Obviously, we've never thought of perfect, so you look at the red zone. We've had 28 trips. We've scored touchdowns on 14 of them, so that's half, 50%. Not where you want to be. You obviously want to score every time, but historically, if you're in the mid to high 60s, you're usually up there and leading the league. Some of the years we were really good in Tennessee, we were damn near at 75%, but that's kind of, you just want to strive to be 100. That's what you're aiming for. So you're at 50 there, so 28 trips. And other than, we've had to kick field goals 9 times. 2 of them were situational, win the game, right? Green Bay, Houston. So those are 2. So the other 7, we had 3 fumbles right down in Tampa. So a lot, turnover on downs that we had down in Jacksonville to try to cut it, 6.5 to the 4th down on the sprint out to Drake. So you look at all this. So we have 99 plays, give or take, and that's including things that have been nullified by penalties, whether it's offense, pre-snap, or even defensive penalties. So you'll say, what's your intent? What are you targeting? Right, so we have a lot of guys that we think are good players on this team. So it's not just Bijan, but it's all those guys. So a lot of times in the drop back, maybe the number 1 read was Kyle, maybe it was Drake. Well, they have a say, they took it away, and you've got a pressure attacker on the other side, so the ball went there. Or unfortunately you got sacked or something negative happened. So having said all that, that's not an excuse, that's just a reality. And intent is, he, among other people, when we've been in sync, it's been pretty good. And there's been some zone reads. That's been a really good play for us, right? So play, if he hands it, going to him. Well, we pulled it, and that's been a pretty positive play for us down there. Tyler, in the situation, Algier, he's been pretty damn good on goal line runs, short yardage. Again, nothing's perfect. And then where you're using other guys. Some of those times you build in run alerts. Maybe you're going to CP, maybe you're going to Bijan, Janu, or whoever. And so you look at it, and you look at 99 plays. Not all of them count because of penalties, or some of them in 2-point. It's been pretty balanced. He's been at the tip of the spear at most of them. Now, the ball hasn't gone to him every time. It's not going to go to every player every time because we've got a lot of good players. So it's my job to make sure that we're better than 50%. And that's what, ultimately, we got to score more points than the opponent, and we want to strive to score every time we're down there. That's how it shakes down. I can get a lot more verbose, but don't want to lose everything or sound like I'm making excuses. That's the reality of it. So again, our intent, try to be very balanced. We've used everybody. He has scored. He's led to a lot of points, some of it, whether he's gotten the ball or not. And then other times, like with all our players, we got to find other ways to make sure we're more lethal down in the red zone. And that's the way we look at it. And so we're striving, look at it, you look at your intent. Okay, if it hadn't been good enough, how do we fix it? And that is the number one job that I have to do. And you have to be accountable for it. And there's nobody that runs from that. That's the blunt reality. And so that's every week. And so if you have an issue in protection, or you're not tackling well enough, or you're losing contain, that's in every phase. But I know this: we have the right guys in the locker room. We have the right staff. So this on Monday, we're not excited about where we're at, but we're not dead and we're not out of it, and we get the chance to go do something about it. And that's what you want. You don't want adversity, but you're going to tell you a lot about yourself. When we've been in it, players and coaches, you're going to find out more about yourself than anything else, and that's what we embrace. Is that good enough? I know I was long-winded, but I tried to at least give the context. No, it is, but it's an open forum. I mean, there's nothing to hide about. It's right. Both things be true. Hadn't been good enough. Our intent's been good at times. Other times, let's do a better job. But you're not going to get there unless you look at your mistakes and failures and say, okay, I know why I did something. Pretty sure, hey, confident going in, and you would never call it, but it didn't work. Okay, why didn't it work? What can I do better? How do you adjust? How do we get everything so we're rolling on all cylinders? If you go the last 5 games and you're averaging close to 400 yards, great. You're not throwing a party because we need to win more. And so, okay, what's causing the issues? And there's a lot that goes into it, but that's what our job is every day.
Is 9 carries enough in the red zone for him?
Well, again, some of those are on his own read, right? You're intent on the play. They've been pulled for touchdowns. Some of them have been called back. I called back or never happened. Penalties, so it changes the situation, right? Change the play call. Maybe to an advantage where also when you end up pop pass to Janu and that scores, or use them as a run alert or over here, and we didn't get the necessarily that look, but somebody else was open. Ball went to Drake or whoever. It's the same thing with Kyle or whoever, and that's the mix and match. But when you look at it consecutively, like I said, 28 drives in the red zone, half have been touchdowns. We want to be 100%, and that's where we're at right now.
I know there's been a lot about running backs this week, but
Sure.
I can ask one more. You kind of follow up on what you said Monday about the eye test being true to you and what you're seeing on Tyler getting stronger as the game goes on. And the numbers suggest that's Bijan as well. He's averaging 4.1 in the first half, 5.9 in the second half. How do you? But you're also thinking about the big picture of the
Sure.
season and keeping a guy fresh. So how difficult is that, and what you have described as an evolving offense in terms of figuring out the game flow and the season flow for this running back distribution?
Yeah, absolutely. So, right, when you look at a problem, or, you're looking at a thing, like you've got options, how do we maximize everybody, right, to go win the game and to continue to improve? And I think when you read those numbers, I think the other thing, too, is you got to look at our offensive line. Credit to Minnesota, they made the last play, we didn't. But if you really look at that last drive, what our guys take pride in is that conditioning. So whether it's Bijan and Tyler, the O-line, the tight ends, the receivers, you're running the football, and there's a way that we feel pretty good in the fourth quarter. The biggest challenge now is, all right, a lot of these games come down to one possession, but let's not make it so hard on ourselves. Let's take more advantage of the opportunities given. Let's play them in sync better together. But I think that's a testament to our players and the way they work. Now we got an 8-game season coming up. nothing's more important than this one, coming up Sunday in Arizona, that we got to get ready and do everything we can to win this game. And but yeah, that's a challenge every week. But we've got a lot of good players, and we got to continue to press, and it starts with me, to make sure we maximize and get the results we want.
Of course, the goal is to reach the end zone, but how beneficial is it to have someone like Younghoe Koo to rely on?
Yeah, it's huge, right? Because as we've seen, it's come up big in times when his number's called, or some of those drives, right? You are playing the situation. Like, we didn't go for the touchdown in Green Bay. I mean, we tried to stay on there and get it down to 3, and you take the risk, even though you're down, to kick it to win to go home. We got it to about a minute, made them use their timeouts, and we didn't convert the last 3rd and 1, and that was a game-winning field goal. We were able to stop them 4 and out after that. And then in Houston, right, we took it down to the wire, made the plays, and then we technically weren't in the red zone when we got down there to win in Tampa, but that is a huge benefit. He's a very good player and a big part of this team. He's the reason why we win a lot of times.
You never want to obviously overlook an opponent, but how do you kind of not overlook a Cardinals team that only has runs?
Well, it's pretty easy in this league because history is going to tell you, again, football, especially pro football, it's a lot of the same lessons you get in life, whether you're talking about adversity and, you try not to ride the roller coaster. You win a game and everybody's happy and acts like you got all the answers. That's not true. When you lose a game and people want to feel sorry for themselves, or you buy in the narrative that you're the worst team ever, or worst coach, or whatever it is. That you can, that those aren't true. So you just try to stay objective. And the reality in the NFL, it doesn't matter what your record is. History will tell you over and over and over again. You better be ready to go every Sunday, and you got to treat every game like it's your Super Bowl. That's the only way to have consistency in this league.
And what are you expecting from Kyler Murray, who's expected to start?
Yeah, I expect him to try to, like I said, play to his strengths, right? Move the pocket, let him get out there a little bit, let him be able to see it, use his skills to the advantage of their offense. They got fast receivers, and play to his strengths and get something going. And probably try to exploit things other people have tried, and that's our job to fix it. So I'm sure it'll be very similar, right? Try to stay ahead of the downs, move the launch point, take their shots when they can get them, see if they can get a lead, and play into their hands where they can play a shell coverage and shorten the game. I bet that would be close to their game plan.
Some of the guys said post game on Sunday, especially on defense, that they just weren't making tackles. They needed. So I guess where does the breakdown happen at all? So then they're not doing something basic as making tackles on the game.
Yeah, it's like in a lot of areas sometimes, and then whether it's an issue you may have, a lot of times it comes back to fundamentals and basics, right? You train a lot, and season goes on, you get fatigued, or maybe you take poor angles. It's back to the basics. The angles where you tackle, your target point, and just fundamentals of wrapping up. That obviously hurt us last week on a few plays that amounted to the difference in the game. And we certainly had our chances. You had free hitters on the rush, and then credit to Dobbs. You don't want to, sometimes when you answer those questions, when I went back to what I was talking about earlier about two things can be true. Dobbs made a good play, but we also can play that better. And I don't want to discredit him, but we know fundamentally we can be better too.
Do you have any updates on Grady? I saw he posted he had surgery.
Yeah, I think that's, other than, let him speak for himself. I know nobody will tack it better than Grady Jarrett will, and I'm sure he'll be ready to roll and be better than ever. So I would never discount Grady Jarrett.
Mark, when you got a guy like Kyler coming off of an injury, significant injury like he had last year, how do you gauge? You just gauge based on what he was prior to the injury? How do you get ready for that? Because will he be as mobile? You don't know that until you get him in the game.
Right, and that is the unknown. But it's also a new scheme, right? He'd been with Cliff Kingsbury, and they had history and completely different scheme. So how they want to use him, that'll be. There's a lot of unknown, right? That's probably the 3rd week in a row we've gone into an unknown. But a little bit of the history of the scheme. But they're obviously going to show us something that they may have been saving, or when they got there and evaluated him as a player and they put some stuff in, maybe you've seen flashes of it. So you're playing the schemes and their strengths and knowing what his strengths are as well. So, like I said, every week's a new challenge. And he's been a good player in this league and been effective. It's our job to go out there and stop them.
You've talked about how there's a lot of variables that go into the quarterback position, obviously, and can you take us inside some of those variables when you're making that decision to stick with Taylor this week? Because you did it a little bit earlier than this time last week. I'm just curious if you could take us into that.
Well, just different situations. Last year we were at a different point, completely different team, different circumstances, and different issues going on. And some of them, for better or worse, and I understand that. Fans and you guys have to ask the questions, deserve the right to know, but there's some things that I will keep private, for better or worse. Some things are obvious, and I understand that. It's not lost on me. People deserve the right to know, but there's some things that maybe I'm overly protective. Sometimes I'm overly sarcastic and got me in trouble a time or two in my life. But yeah, there's so many things that go into it. It's not all on the quarterback, and sometimes it's the matchups, it's the way things are trending. But I think at the end it'll all work itself out the way it should. We have the right people, but they're completely different situations than last year. Completely different dynamics, and every year there's new challenges, whether they're dealing with injuries or dealing with other things that could be going on. And so it does fall on you, and that's my responsibility. That's what they pay me for, and you got to live with the consequences of every decision you make. And so right now, in the short term, we feel where we're at, everything we got going on right now, that Taylor gives us the best chance. We're not going to play musical chairs. The bye, hopefully we can go get this win. Take a second to really evaluate, as we make that sprint towards the end of the season. So that's just the best I can give you right now. Like I said, maybe I got a lot of flaws, but one of them always going to be very protective of our players and anything that we have in-house. But there's nothing like crazy behind the scenes. So that's just kind of where we're at.
So just kind of follow up on that then, in terms of not playing musical chairs, you figure after the bye, whoever you go with is who you're going to.
Yeah, unless unforeseen, injury or something else happens. I mean, things come up all the time. Like I said, you don't account for, but you have to have a plan and a contingency. I mean, life happens sometimes off the field too. And, you've got to be aware of that, and a lot of things that can affect people. You see it all around in every industry.
It's fair to say then after the bye week, you'll feel like you have enough tape on both guys to really evaluate who should be in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair.
In terms of you were talking about, kind of having a bunch of players and trying to figure out, how do you try and keep the different players happy? CPU was on social media yesterday and posting that he can really do this and a run that he had.
Yeah, I mean, I know I say things like that. I mean, I tell you the healthiest thing that probably ever happened to me, and this isn't a discount because I think social media can do a lot of good when it's used right. I think we all need humor. And there's some funny things that have given me at times, not just in football, that made me laugh, and maybe I'm messed up because humor is cathartic for me sometimes, whether it's at my own expense. And then sadly, and you see it not in this industry, you can see the worst of humanity in social media too. I mean, I fear for, I don't want to go on a philosophical tangent, but I fear for my kids, and you see the way it's manipulated and some of the algorithms, and people are smarter than me and monetize outrage, and they can get a lot of, you can think the world's ending. That's what you worry about young kids. You really look at the mental health crisis, a guy can think their own world, and if you took a second and didn't live through your screen, you realize that probably people don't care. But if you're in that world, whether you're a high school student and you think that everybody's talking about you or whatever, it can mess some people up. And you see it all over. So how does it relate to players? So again, I've never looked at social media being real. I think there's a lot of good that can come of it, and there has been. Things of people brought light to things that have probably been in either light shed on them, or they've used to raise money in the right way, but you've seen it used in horrific ways. And middle ground was, the humor that we all probably need at times. But so when you get to that and you get to teams, it goes back to this. It goes back to human relations. Like, what is your interaction? Can you develop relationships? And that's what we try to do. Certainly I do. Whether a guy's been here a day or 3 years, those are real conversations, and those are daily conversations. It's being transparent. There's so much that happens in one play. Yet these guys know. It's not like you're sitting here as I think there's a lot of, best way to put it, about getting like a foreign adversary after me, but it's not like we're some third world like dictator and asking these guys to like march into, and they're like, yes sir. That's not how it works. Like, guys are smart. It's a collaborative, leadership, and you're talking about relationships. So guys know what's going on. You're not going to fool people. So I think when you're really transparent behind the scenes, and people may see a sliver of something, and maybe something talking about something different, or some people are just like to be manipulators. Who knows, right? It's like, but they're all real interactions, so that's how you do. They know what your intent is. If you don't, then you're going to get, you guys cover this, you guys see it all. You wouldn't get the harmony that we have in the locker room, and that's real. But it goes back to, again, stepping away from the screen and having a real relationship with people, being honest, being truthful, and not thinking you've got all the answers, and as we try to problem solve as a staff and as a team. But it goes back to the kind of characters, and we spend a lot of time, the characteristics of the players we bring in here and the staff you bring in here on every side. And again, we haven't been perfect, but there's a lot that goes into it. So that's why I appreciate these guys and the staff, and that's why I'm confident that we'll get back on the winning track, and everything we want to achieve is in front of us.
Has this been one of the more challenging years of your coaching career?
No. There's always going to be something, and I say that, and it's not to make light of it, because you're living in the present moment. But I'd argue at 19 that probably was worse, first time going through that, and that's why I always appreciate Mike Vrabel, because again, you want to, you could learn a valuable lesson. You feel like the world's ending, and then you realize you trust the process, you make a change here or there, and there's other things and you have to be empathize with decisions. But we knew we were close. We broke through the other side. Doesn't mean that'll necessarily happen this year, but that gives you a lot of confidence because you have evidence, and that's just one year, and there's been others. I wasn't in a leadership position, but I've seen, in 07 when I was in Washington, what happened there with Sean Taylor. I mean, there's things that have been awful, and there's other things that are real life that have been more challenging than, and I don't take lightly because it's our job to win games, but all those experiences add up, and thankfully we got a chance to go do something about it. And this, I think if you're looking for relief, temporary relief, that's not going to work either. You can win 3 Super Bowls, and the next year you better come back and do it again. Or you can win one game and you can have 500 yards. Well, you better come back and do it again. If that bothers you, it's probably not the right job for you.
Art, when was the last time you remember a defensive tackle having 10 tackles, a sack, and a forced fumble?
Been a while.
I mean, is that what you thought you were getting when you got on Yamada? You knew he was a good player, but I mean, my goodness.
There's so much that David brings, and that's another thing. That's not a position that's been monetized by stats, and that's not a shot at anybody. But there's a lot of that's what's beautiful about this game. If you're a real, again, that's where there's something for everybody. But if you're a guy that appreciates line play, I think David's up there with the best of them in terms of what he does down in and down out. The strength he has at the point of attack, the way he affects the game, he's unique. And I appreciate David and the things he does, and he's a guy who loves to play, and he is an absolute warrior.
On the topic of people who don't get a lot of light shed on them, what's the status of Parker Hesse? And
He's working to come back.
Is he a player that when you get him back to help you in some of these red zone situations, like that's been on top of the conversation lately? Is he a player that you would want to get involved on game day rosters when he is healthy?
What's the ticket? I mean, Parker's done a lot for us. He's been an unsung hero. We've had other guys step up. I mean, I don't think anybody predicted that Tucker Fisk was going to, on a potential game-winning drive, have the impact he did, but that's a guy that's been working in the program, and there's been a lot of the jobs Michael Pruitt does. Been with Parker a long time. Guys are at different paces trying to come back, return to play. Appreciate the leadership that he brings every day, even when he's not out there, and he's as consistent as a guy that you could absolutely have. So if I was in any industry, in any job, that'd be a guy I'd highly recommend, because he's going to do a really good job and do it well, and that's why you love guys like Parker. But there's a lot of guys like that, and guys step up. Like I said, Tucker. Keith couldn't play last week, and then Tucker's done a lot of good jobs, and he continues to develop, and we'll hopefully get Keith back this week. And but sure, I mean, there's a lot of guys. I mean, the jobs that Jake Matthews doesn't want to play that can help you in the red zone, or Chris, or whoever that is. The little details that can make the difference in play. There are a lot of guys like that.
You mentioned Keith, is he fully free?
Should be, hopefully by the end of the day. He's got to get one, but yeah, it's trending.
So this is the
I feel yes, yes.
Anything else? Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.